This is an overview of the Carell Famlar A31 series light gauge initial pinch plate rolls. Checking the parallel of the bending roll to the top roll. What's important for proper setup when plate rolling and rolling cylinders, we want to ensure that the bending roll is parallel to the top roll. I've adjusted this where I have a fixed gap here, which I like. What I'm going to do here is I can see I'm a little bit open on this end. We have the disconnect. I have the set screw loosened up. I can disconnect this. Now this frees up the drive end where I can move this independently. Just by pushing the up button and the down button, I can set my gap to where I like it. I'll confirm this to the other side. And I can readjust my coupling and tighten that down, and the roll is in parallel. And you're ready to roll. I'm going to demonstrate basic plate rolling on an initial pinch machine. On any plate roll, we always want to use the center of the rolls themselves. Each roll, depending on the model, the roll diameter, and the capacity, will have a certain amount of crown in the rolls. This helps to equalize the pinch pressure between the center and the ends. So to make sure that that's equal about each side of the shoulders, we work from this always from the center out. What I've done is I've adjusted the back roll where I can use this as a backstop, so I'm squaring off my plate. Right now I have this, the pinch roll is open. So in order to adjust for the pinch pressure, I'll move the pinch up. And what I'm looking for is something where it doesn't slide back and forth, doesn't have to pinch it too hard, or else you could extrude or apply too much force to the center of the portion, but just enough to keep it from moving side to side. I can drop this back down. Here I have side play. Tap this up, and that's enough to feed it through. Now for this particular plate, it's 25 3/16 of an inch. You divide that by 3.141 or pi. That gives you a diameter of 8 inches for this length of sheet. Half of the diameter is 4 inches, so this will be a 4-inch radius. So this is what I'll be doing. This is my first setup piece on this particular material. So we're going to see what it takes to roll a 4-inch radius to create a cylinder with this. So right now I've adjusted my pinch pressure. I can lower my back bending roll, and I'm going to move the camera angle so we can see these next steps. I'm going to adjust the pinch pressure of the machine for this particular plate. I'm going to take my back bending roll up. I'm going to use it to square the plate off. And again, I want to work from the center out. Once that's good and square, I'll apply pinch pressure. This is enough to hold it in place, but not move it side to side. I don't want to squeeze too tight, just tight enough just to keep it from moving side to side. That's good. I can move the back bending roll out of the way. Next, I'll rotate the plate through the machine just to the leading edge of the material. And I have that just underneath top dead center. This allows us to pre-bend to the leading edge of the plate. The minimal pre-bend is about 1.5 times the material thickness, and that's enough just to hold it in place. My next adjustment is going to be a bending roll adjustment, and it's basically I'm going to visualize or use this radius template to see how much deflection I have of this material going through the rolls here. So I'll move my bending roll up till I can visually see the deflection here, and once it looks close to that, I can roll this in multiple passes to roll it tight, but this will get me close with my first adjustment. So I'll move my mobile control stand over here so I can get a better vantage point. Again, I'm looking at this deflection here, comparing this with the material to my template. And so we need to kind of look dead center underneath the top roll. And what we can do, I can need a little bit more. It's better to have too little than too much. I can roll this through. And once I have material feeding out, now we can check this radius template on the other side. All right, we'll roll this through. So here I can see I have a considerable distance to go. I have about another ½ inch of adjustment. So in order to close that gap, I typically move the bending roll up about ½ inch. But at this point, I'm going to bend this gradually. I'm going to roll to about this tailstock. Okay, so now we have basically the parts pre-bent from the leading edge. Now I have a straight piece. This tailstock is getting ready to lose contact with the bending roll, so it actually needs to feed back in the opposite direction. So what I'll do, I'll take this out and then flip that around so I can start my pre-bend from the trailing edge and work back in the opposite direction. So what I'll do, I'll feed this through. I'll let the tailstock follow through. Now it was an unbent straight. And this was because when I started with the leading edge, I started pinching here. I rolled through this section. When it lost contact with the bending roll, that left me an unbent straight. So now what I can do with the same roll setting, I can basically start this back in this other direction here. I need to pinch this material and roll that through. Now I've just let it feed out so the roll will pick it back up. That gives me a bit of a radius. Now let's change the geometry a little bit, but then again we'll just use our template here. So I'll have to work on the pre-bend on the trailing edge. All right, and again, I'll use my radius gauge to compare this to what I see happening with the material. Okay, now one thing I can see here, we see that at this radius we see that there's a gap once I've flipped this material around. Now one setting that's going to get us close is if we move this bending roll up to contact, so we're closing up that gap, and then I'm going to move it just a little bit more. And that should get me pretty close to where we want to form this pre-bend. So let's roll that through. I'm going to roll through to the trailing edge. All right. I can hold this and then work back. So again, comparing our template. Now I still have quite a bit of way to go here, so I have a good 5/8 3/4 of adjustment. I'll move the bending roll up about that much. So this way I'm going to gradually work down. I can move just to the tailstock. If it feeds through, that's fine. I'll just pick it back up. Now I'll move my adjustment up. It was about 5/8 of an inch. I'll move it up about 3/8 of an inch, just because I don't want to overbend. Now I'll roll this back through. And I can see that's actually coming out very tight. So just from the looks of it, so I'm going to actually drop my bending roll down. Relax that a little bit. Let's roll back through a little bit. If I want, I can pull that back out. Let's roll it through. And that's right at 4 inches. I didn't, so that was almost too much, but that looks fairly good right there. So I like that. So let's take that back. Now at this point, I can try to close up my cylinder. Let's give it a little bit of adjustment. Let's roll that through. I'm going to form a good pre-bend. I'm going to flip this back around and contact this roller, so I want enough material to contact this side roll. That looks fairly good, so all I have to do is to roll this out. I can flip this back around. Again, since I have my pinch adjusted, I can just let this roll pick it back up. And I have enough to contact this lateral roll here. Now from this point, I'll roll back in the opposite direction. Back up to my edge here. I'll move my adjustment up, and I'll gradually close this up. I'm going to overroll a little bit to overlap these. Then I'll drop my bending roll. With light sheet metal, leave that a little bit of forgiveness. What I want is a nice tight gap here, and that should get me fairly close. I can actually, if I overroll, I can actually tap on the outside of this to relax this easily so I can get a good tight seam.